All right, well, this is Aaron Squire, and I just thank you guys for showing up and hanging out with us again. I've got a guest on tonight, Jcrawl from the Hex Engine Pro team. And tonight we're going to be we're going to talk to him, interviewing him, and then we're going to talk about Cory's blog. We're going to talk about a Reddit thread really quick that I had posted. And I'm going to address some questions from my viewers. Then we're going to do our deck doctor, which is going to be a mono diamond deck, which is kind of aggro-y. I don't know if I would call it an aggro deck per se. It's almost more of a mid-range deck, but we're gonna take a good look at that. So first of all, just introduce Jcrawl. He's one of our contributors on Hex Engine Pro. He's really picked up some steam lately, and we've seen him do a lot more stuff. He's pretty much almost the co-host of the new Two Turns Ahead podcast with John. He's on there quite often. So Jcrawl, just a quick question, or a couple quick questions. What kind of content are you doing these days?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show, of course. And well, I streamed Hex quite a bit when the alpha first started, and then I had a really good computer and it broke, so I just got my new computer in yesterday, so I can actually just start streaming quite a bit again, which I'm really happy about because I was on this garbage can laptop and I couldn't actually play or couldn't actually stream. It was just terrible. So I plan to, if me and say John on the podcast, brew up a deck, testing various things. I just want to
come up with some different ideas. Maybe break the meta a little bit. It's what you guys typically try to do is come up with the new meta game moving forward, for sure. That's what I've seen you do, at least.
Basically, I mean, I like to kind of break the mold. Just try new things. Cards that people typically aren't using.
Right.
For example, when we brewed that Blood of Ruby deck with all the discard and misfortunes, which I didn't see a lot, and Brood Creepers and Zarloks. Those were two Zarloks and Brood Creeper. I didn't really see that often. I thought the cards were really powerful, and it turns out they were.
Right.
So as time goes on, and with some card balancing changes that I hope are incoming, we can continue to do that. So that's what I'm really going to mainly focus on. A lot of PvP stuff. Can't wait for drafting to be released so I can get up some draft queues that I've done, explain why I'm picking certain cards, that kind of thing. So
Right, yeah. It's definitely good to see the draft queues. It's really hard to have an article, an all-encompassing drafting article. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen attempts, made like, oh, these are the top limited cards, but it's not something that I would really want to write about or talk about until I can actually get in, 5 or 6 drafts and be like, oh wow, these are really good. Like when I done some sealed queues, I didn't expect Sapphire to be at the power level that it actually is at.
Right.
Mostly, because I didn't really take into account how powerful gems were. So things like that.
I put that mostly on that champion though, the one that just gives them flying. I mean, that's kind of a big deal, with Sapphire.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just give anything evasion. Who cares?
Yeah.
So you've done a little bit of professional Magic. You've got quite a few tournaments under your belt, and you've top 8'd recent Star City games. So just tell me about that a little bit.
Well, Magic career wise, I've lived in Houston most of my life, and then I moved to Grand Junction, Colorado, for a job, and I actually just moved to Denver about a month ago. But really in Grand Junction, didn't get a lot of Magic playing done that I really wanted to do. I mean, the scene there isn't really that great, but now
Quite
that I'm
a
in
small
Denver,
city.
now that I'm in Denver, I can start playing more competitive tournaments. Like you said, the most recent, I guess, decent finish was at a top 4 at Star City Salt Lake, where I played Junk Aristocrats, and this is when Jund with Bonfire of the Damned was, that was the premier deck, the deck to beat. And kind of, what I did in that tournament is like what I like to do with Hex. I'll, take established decks, and I actually added Desecration Demon to the list, which is now just a, super hot standard playable. But at the time, it really wasn't getting played. Like, there was that green-black rock deck that just started off on Magic Online that featured it. But
It was $1.
It ended up working out really well for me, and like that creature helped kind of just dominate games against Jund, whereas like that Junk Aristocrats deck really couldn't compete with like one bonfire would just ruin your day.
Right.
And this stuff like that, and my Magic playing at heart is mostly Legacy. So there's not really a lot of broadcast eternal tournaments or anything like that. So I didn't
it's tough
really
for
get
people
to
to
play
watch.
Legacy.
Yeah, because the card pool is
to...
very large, and there's the metagame in Legacy is very, very deep.
It is, and I thoroughly enjoy that. I've played Legacy for probably 5 or 6 years now. I played a lot in Houston.
Right.
Won a bunch of tournaments there.
Just so our viewers are aware, like Legacy would be like with Hex if we were to leave like all the cards in except for the ones that are the most broken. So maybe something like, I don't know, probably even Inquisitor wouldn't be that broken in Legacy, but something like, maybe they might ban Inquisitor or something like that. Like a couple
this is
of
like
bans.
20 sets down the road for
Right.
Hex, and you're able to play with literally all the cards.
Right.
And I imagine Hex is going
cards.
to Hex is going to do something like that.
Right,
so
an eternal
we'll
format
see.
of some sort.
And that's really what I'm going to look at, because you take a Hex card like Servant, the Servant guy, the 2/2 flyer. I think Servant decks are good, but I don't think they're going to get really good until we have those multiple sets, and I can actually kind of just overlap cards.
Exactly.
Say they do functional reprints of cards, like there's a burn, and then they print another card that's identical to burn that does 2 damage for 1 mana. So stuff like that.
Exactly.
That's what I'm really looking forward to. That and just competitive drafting, and so we'll see.
Actually. I remember seeing Servant, and I said the exact same thing. I said this card is pretty good right now, but it needs more sets to really be good, so we have more cards that we can one of in the deck, and make things a little bit more consistent. That's
Definitely.
for sure. So I think that's it for unless you guys. We'll go ahead and have you plug your content really quick. So just let the people know where they can find you.
It's just Twitch, .tv/ Jcrawl 85. So
The 85th Jcrawl.
So like I said, I haven't been streaming that much, but now that I have this new rig, I can definitely start streaming again. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. Pretty soon you might have to do the Jcrawl needs a new rig fund or something, huh?
Well, no, this one's fine. This
one's
will
pretty
definitely
good,
last me. Yeah, so this will definitely last me for a while. So.
All right. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the Cory Jones blog, and Jay is not really so much into the lore of Hex as I understand it.
I am not.
But we're going to talk about it a little bit anyways. So basically, Cory's talking about everybody's favorite thing. I know that like when I post videos of the Shin'Hare, these videos do ridiculously well. And of course, I'm tagging him with bunnies and other stuff like that. But I'm not going to go through all of it as I typically do, because I want you to go out there and read Cory's own words from his blog. But he just talks about some of the processes that he goes through, like world building for the lore, and this is kind of important for people that are going to do PvE or aspiring dungeon masters out there that are going to like do like Dungeons and Dragons-esque type of things where you want to write up a world. So very good read for you people that are into that sort of thing. Something he breaks everything down to is the different houses. There's I guess there's 5 different houses. You got the Moon Eru, the Tesuan Jun, Winda Jin, Ithru Kin, and Mist Oromo. So you guys, I probably butchered most of those, but something that was kind of interesting to me was if you guys remember, we had Moon Arrow Sensei, which is a 1/1 cantripping troop for 2 in the wild, who is a Shin'Hare, and originally he was Sensei of the Milky Eye. Well, the Milky Eye, according to the lore that Cory had wrote about in here, is a race of assassins, and what happens is they remove one of their eyes, and they get it replaced with this milky orb. So that's why they're called Senseis of the Milky Eye. And the guy that's in charge that runs all the assassins, the Assassin King or whatever, he has 2 of these orbs, and he can see everything that all of his troops can see all the time, so that gives him tactical advantage. Kind of interesting. But yeah, these guys are really bloodthirsty and a really dark race for sure. I think in the future what might be neat to see is to see one of these groups that like splinters off and becomes like the good guy bunnies, you know, and they fight against them. I think that would be a really good lore point to come across like in the future. But the Shin'Hare are very, very interesting. So Jeremy, do you have anything to say? I didn't
I enjoy giving this stuff a read. I mean, I'll wholeheartedly admit, as soon as I got my alpha access, the absolute first deck I built was Shin'Hare. Like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. I was like, oh my god, building blood bunnies, and this is gonna be awesome.
Right.
So like, it's really interesting. I like tribal theme type decks, and it'll be cool to see how kind of the card pool grows and how that, you know, affects the lore and the story. So I don't really focus too much on lore, you know, like when I play Magic or other type games, but it's definitely cool to see that, you know, this game that we're all playing has this actual really deep, well thought out story.
Right. And that has actually a guiding factor when they're talking about some of the different why they do some things with different shards and stuff like that. So moving on to from there, that'll segue us to let's see. We want to go from there to the Reddit thread that I created. So I'm actually going to need to pull up Reddit here. And there it is. And so what I did was I submitted a thread this week where I was just talking about Extinction. Where's the thread? I can't even find it on here. I think it moved down quite a ways. I'm not seeing it. All right. Well, basically, what the thread talked about was how it is that is Extinction. Like he's. Oh, there it is.
No. Here's a question. Right now, there are very few troops that deal well with Extinction. Do you think that we need something that makes the Blood X control player have to work a little harder when dealing with Wild or Diamond, particularly? Examples would be troops that can be played at quick action speed, or troops that leave troops behind when they die.
Right.
So
we got some mixed responses on this one. Someone said that they wanted to see regeneration, which kind of goes into a different conversation. That's kind of like, which keywords should we start pulling from Magic and which ones should we leave alone? Some of the other keywords we haven't seen yet are like reach, protection. What else? There's quite a few double strike we haven't seen, things like that. I don't think that Hex needs to have all of the same keywords that we've seen.
One of the problems is Magic has so many keywords. It's kind of hard not to take from that.
Right.
It's you have to pick and choose, but it's really hard to be innovative when there's
it's kind of like Simpsons did it syndrome.
Already associated with Magic, you know. So you're going to see a lot of it. Like we see a little bit of it now, like with Invincible. Like you got Frista Brigadon that's Invincible. The Lixil guy, they may have removed that threshold thing, but you know, if he gets all 5 colors, then he's Invincible.
I think
but
that's kind of like whatever.
All cards are he's.
They're all he's. Even Shadim.
Yeah, they're just dudes. They're dudes that I play.
They're dudes. So, I mean, if you guys have a comment on that one, go ahead and hit up the Reddit thread or post on this YouTube video when we go to syndication what your ideas are about Extinction. Is it, do we have enough answers for it as the aggro player? I know going back like to my Kithkin days when I really got more serious about Hex, I got blown out by any type of wrath effect. Anything that destroyed all my troops, it was like, well, I guess that I just sit here and do nothing, and you had to commit to the board, because if you didn't, your opponent would just simply play like whatever that was, the dragon that put 2 4/4 dragons into play, and you're like, well, none of my guys is big enough to attack through it. Yeah, Broodmate dragon.
Oh, Broodmate.
Yeah, they would do something like that, and then it's like, well, I guess I can't attack anymore, so I'm on the defensive now, and it, you know, because like if you only played like 2 troops and you were just waiting for them to Extinction, it just wasn't enough damage to force it. So
then they cruel ultimatum you.
Yeah,
all your guys die anyway.
Yeah, so it was really a bad spot to be in there, and then later on it got better when they they brought in like man lands that had a little bit of evasion from all those effects. They weren't always a dude. Sometimes they were a dude when you made them a dude.
Yeah, Kitchen Finks was around at that time.
Kitchen Finks was kind of a big deal. It didn't see as much play as it probably should have, due to Kithkin as far as the mono white decks.
Yeah.
But we don't really have a lot of this with Hex. We've got the skeleton that you basically have to kill twice, but I mean it's a 1/2 or 1/1 skeleton.
So I think he's a 1/2, but
right. But I mean it's like
costs
there's no
4
equipment
to
to
turn
throw
back
on him.
into 1/2. Yeah.
It's not like I can put him like some sort of like sword on him or something and have him go to town. Like there's nothing that is like a Thrag Tusk that leaves something behind. There's basically Fist of Brigadon, which people have somewhat prepared for, and that really narrows your deck. And then you've got Lixil, like we just talked about, and that makes your deck a lot less consistent because now you have to play 5 shards to get her invincible. So you're not in a really great spot to deal with Extinction just by playing troops.
Yeah, one of the worst things about Extinction is the best counter to Extinction is playing Blood itself.
Right, exactly. So like I really feel like Diamond and Wild really need some better answers for Extinction. Like someone else pointed out, like a Resurrection for Diamond's
but it costs 9.
way to deal. Yeah, it costs 9. So like we're actually going to talk about that. That'll segue us to our deck later, but it costs 9. This isn't a card that's supposed to go.
Urnaz costs 7.
This deck, and Urnaz costs 7, and it's your opponent's stuff, not your own. It'd be a lot different if Urnaz was your own stuff, but again, that puts you back into Blood. So it just feels like we need something better to respond with to at least give us a chance where they have to blow us out at least one more time with Extinction.
Yeah, just a two resource instant that makes all your dudes indestructible, stuff like that. Maybe
something like that.
Something very basic, or just a wild card that says creatures that would die this turn instead.
Leave some 1/1s behind or something.
Yeah,
or something.
So yeah, I still retain my argument that the removal in this game, even though they took away Persecute, the removal in this game is much stronger than the troops we actually have available to us to fight that removal.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that'll segue us to our question segment. So these are some of the questions people ask me. So I'm just going to answer a bunch of these all at once. And that Extinction question came up here. Vulgarian asked me a whole bunch of interview type questions for his website. So I'm going to go ahead and respond to him here, and then I'm going to send him a link to this video because I like being lazy. So his topic is he's talking about board wipes. The obvious and the not so obvious. He says, currently, what board wipes do you use in decks? Well, obviously I'm using Extinction and Heatwave because Judgment, Tectonic Break, and Comet Strike are like the first two, Judgment and Tectonic Break, aren't that great, and Comet Strike is really expensive and it's very one-dimensional.
Yeah, conditional board wipes are without a doubt generally just worse than straight up board wipe cards. Like Heatwave has no conditions, it just does 2 damage to everything, and Extinction just destroys everything. You have to play a card like Judgment or Tectonic Break, you have to build your deck around it to fight it, and that generally will make your deck actually worse.
Plus Tectonic Break is random, and so I've like had
Random
a bunch of the
bad.
I've had a bunch of like 3 toughness things, and I'm like, it's got to get at least half of these. It got 1 of them out of like 4. And like I had like I'm playing like Battle Beetle and like Fist and other stuff like that, and I think it did get my low power troop. It got like my Sensei, but of course I expected it to get that. But yeah, right now I'd say Heatwave and Extinction are pretty much the best, and then Comet Strike is somewhat playable, and Judgment and Tectonic Break are really not competitively playable in a competitive sense at all. So, and it talks about, are there board wipe cards you auto-pick in limited formats? If so, which ones are they? Pretty much the same ones. I would auto-pick, like, Extinction Heatwave. If I was in those shards, probably. If anything, I would hate draft them.
Well,
even if I wasn't in the shard.
I would definitely take Extinction. Like if it's pack one, pick one, I would take Extinction. Heat Wave is a little different depending on, if I'm going into Ruby. It just depends on. Well, I also don't know the rarity of Heat Wave offhand, and it's one of the things that you have to consider. Like, is Heat Wave going to come around to you? So I would definitely first
Heatwave
pick an
should be
Extinction.
uncommon, I would
I,
hope.
I would I would believe it's uncommon. I can
Yeah.
pull it up here, but that's one of the things I would consider is rarity. I would probably pass the other board wipe spells. Actually, I definitely would, unless Heat Wave is actually rare. I didn't
Wow.
expect that. So Heat Wave is rare. But again, the conditional board wipes. I don't want to have like if I first pick a judgment that kind of sticks me either. I've passed a really good uncommon, so now I'm going to have to try to build around my deck with judgment in it, and that's not something I want to do in a
No.
limited format.
That's pretty rough. So the last question on here is, do you feel Extinction should be changed? Why or why not? Absolutely not. When we first started playing, Extinction costed 5, and they had to bring it down to 4 to help it keep a lot of aggro under control. And even now, it doesn't really do a good job of dealing with Ruby aggro, as we saw in the last tournament, because I had Extinction in both of my games in that top 8, and it just wasn't enough. And even if I would have been able to Extinction the board, there's a very good chance my opponent would have easily have reestablished, and he just needed a top deck of burn spell to kill me. And yeah, so I absolutely don't think that Extinction needs to change. I will be interested to see in the future if Diamond's going to get some sort of wrath effect like Extinction. People have pointed out the fact that the point and click removal plus Extinction is a little bit too much for Blood to have. And what we've seen in Magic terms, at least, is for the most part, if there's a board wipe in that black shard or Blood shard, a lot of times it's like -2/-2, or it's something where it's going to affect the toughness. It's not really a destroy all creatures. There's only one of those that I can think of off the top of my head. There might be a couple more. So any thoughts, Jay?
I personally think if a lot of my thoughts on Extinction depend on how Inquisitor is handled. If they are not going to change Inquisitor, I think Extinction should cost 5. If they do change Inquisitor, then we'll see what they change it to. But Extinction should be harder to play, in my opinion, because again, the troops are not at the power level of the removal we have. So you could make Extinction a triple blood threshold, or you can make it cost 5. So that's what I think.
Right. Okay, so that will segue us to our next question from one of my viewers. We have I have a Chimes deck that I put up, Blood Sapphire. I found that it's a little bit too slow to deal with Ruby, which is very popular right now. So I'm actually experimenting with some other Chimes decks. But he noticed while I was playing my decks that I do a lot of counting, and he pointed out that you can look on the left side of the screen at your hand size. And so I said, oh, that's probably a good idea. So that's good advice for everyone, really.
Numbers. He's good at them.
I'm used to counting my hand, I guess. I have this hand in front of me, and I can hover over the cards, and they move around, and I'm like, ooh, I can count my hand, and I guess I'm just used to that. So, so that's pretty much is what it is, type of thing. And the natives are getting restless, I can hear. So the next thing is we've got Ian Cannon asked me. It said basically kudos on the last episode, and gave me a deck to analyze. I'm trying to think of what else he had. Yeah, he just talks about the different hand percentages. So we're going to go ahead and actually go over Ian Cannon's deck right now. So we're moving on to the deck doctor of tonight. Pretty quick. So this is basically a diamond, mono diamond aggro-y ish type of deck. You can see the curve here. Kind of interesting. He's got 2 6-drops and one 8+ drop in the form of Resurrection. And we just talked about this and how this is probably not the best for a deck like this. We've also got 2 King Gabes in here. So right off the bat, I mean, we're having problems with our curve there. Beyond some of the troop choices. So We'll probably just start off with that by getting rid of those if he wants to stick with this lower curve. I'm not sure exactly where he's going. I mean, Jay, what do you think about some of these choices here?
So when I look at this deck, what I'm looking at is uh, I understand, is he I mean to make some points about why he likes it. It's kind of two deck ideas kind of put together, and I mean you can kind of take this deck in two directions in my opinion. It's like, all right, do I want to go straight mono white aggro, or do I want to kind of go the more controlling element? And cards like Shellsafe, Sure Shot, and Cloud Knight are, in my opinion, really good at a control type show. You get some life gain, you get some extra blockers, or do you want to shift it to an aggro type deck? And it's almost I kind of don't like to. If people say they're successful with the deck, I don't want to just argue with them and say I don't like this. It's more like, okay, let's build on these ideas and maybe throw out some ideas that he may or may not have thought of.
Right.
So it's just more, how do we want to take this deck? Like if I wanted to go more aggressive, I would cut the resurrection. I'd probably cut a blinding light or two, cut some repels, maybe a conflict. And if you really want to combat like mono red aggro, then I think the little Grimskull sorcerer with a first strike gem
Oh
is a
yeah.
really good choice.
Oh
Like that
yeah.
would be a really good
He's
addition.
so underplayed right now for sure.
Yeah, like if I'm playing a diamond deck and I'm worried about mono ruby, I'm either gonna main deck for that guy with a first strike gem, or put four of them in my sideboard.
Right.
Uh, throw some eternal use in your sideboard. Now, if you want to go more controlling, like I would cut, say, the living totems, the spirit walkers, and then maybe add some eternal use. And Soul Marble could definitely be a great addition to this deck. I love Soul Marble in pretty much any deck
John hates
that
Soul
plays
Marble.
Diamond.
I'm
It,
kind of
it's
iffy about it because it's just such a
it's
big windup.
it every I understand like you have to pump a lot of resources into it, but in a deck like this, where like say you're playing that control type game,
Oh yeah.
and you have a soul marble sitting there, it's like, all right, well they didn't attack me, so I can just pump 4 mana into this thing.
Oh yeah.
You take your turn and you just say go, and there's this threat looming on the board. It's like, well, you're gonna have to deal with a 6/6 spell shield, or you're gonna, if you
Yeah.
go the
I'm
more
gonna
aggressive
have
route, all your guys are gonna
I'm,
get huge.
I'm gonna have a
And,
5/4 Spearcliff Cloud Knight that you can't even target.
Yeah, and it's going to gain me 5 life a turn. If you attack me, it's a 10-point life swing in the course of one turn.
Yeah.
So again,
So
there's two directions you can take with a deck like this. Now, when I look at this list, what I'm really thinking is it's more the control element is what I'm seeing.
that's who you
He's
think he wants to go
obviously,
for?
yeah. So obvious, with the four repels, four end of conflicts, four blinding light, like that to me screams, hey,
We're
I
playing
don't want
control.
I don't want to take any damage, and I want to control the board, but I don't want to play blood. The Stoneskins, I understand why you're playing them, or why he's playing them, but if I don't, if my opening hand is repels conflicts, say one defender, which I'm probably not going to Stoneskin, that could be a potentially dead card. So
Yeah.
if we want to shift it to that control element, I think Eternal Use would be a great addition. I think, I can't
The
believe I
the
just
guy
lost my
that the
train of
guy
thought.
that the guy that draws cards when you convert them. So what I
Yep,
really
like,
like with Eternal Youth is running one, and then maybe running the guy that you convert him, and he just basically he lets you top deck whatever you want to, because then you can top deck Eternal Youth over and over again, and that way it's not as much, because like by itself Eternal Youth doesn't really change your board state. It's one of those that you kind of want to play over and over again to basically demoralize your opponent and be like, you'll never deal enough damage to deal with me.
yeah,
So another one I'm thinking about for this deck, if we do go the control route, which it sounds like we are, is probably Hex Engine, and possibly the other one that you get one every turn. I always forget what it's called.
it's Surge mechanism.
Surge mechanism, yeah. So if we're going the control route, which it sounds like we are, I think that we could optimally try those in there.
What champion are we playing?
Good question. Let's see.
See, I think in a deck like this, I think Dimmid is a good choice. Specifically, so you can Dimmid your King Gabriel a couple times because you don't want to use Dimmid.
Well, so if we're playing this guy,
on.
then we got to play what's his name, Droz Walker. I've seen people do that. That's a crazy combo.
Yeah, you know, 2 Drew's Walkers, like that's not going to hurt anything.
Right.
Just having an 8/8 out there that, you know, even if it just attacks once, fine. But if you have Dimmid,
you give that life
then...
linking, then it gains the 8 life. You can pay it next turn. You know, that's that's pretty nice. So let's see here. We're gonna go into the control route, huh? Vitae would be if we were gonna play with the life-gaining knight, which I don't think we're playing with at all.
No,
we're not playing him. We're not really playing life-gaining. I mean, we'll probably keep Cloud Knight in because it's just a solid troop and it keeps us alive. And also that kind of helps out with Droz Walker, but playing the knight I don't think is really happening. I'm surprised you don't like the totem in here as for a control deck.
Well, one of the things you have to think about when you're making a control deck is when you're playing less and less troops, like I don't like the dies to removal option, but if you're playing troops that basically just turn on your opponent's removal, I don't like that. Because, you know, sure, Cloud Knight, but Cloud Knight is so good, you just want him in the deck. So, right. I mean, the goal of, you know, you're playing this control shell is you don't want your opponent's burns to do anything except 2 damage to you. You just want them to be basically dead cards in your opponent's hand because that's effectively making them discard a card, if that makes sense.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah. Let's see. Judgment. We can't really run Judgment. Chaos Key is probably at least a 1 of. Soul Marble, you're saying? Instead of...
I would always say Soul Marble. You're not going to get any arguments from me.
Okay. Alright, let's see here. Keeping the King Gabe. Okay, Ascendant, Ascetic Aspirant is the one I was talking about. With the combo. He's going to... Thing is, the only problem with him is you're not going to be able to play cards. So that's the biggest problem that I'm seeing.
Yeah, like if when he flipped to his second little form, I don't know what we're gonna call it, but he goes to a 0/1. That's another one of those things. You know, if you're only playing 8-9 troops, it's like, well, you know, he's gonna be the obvious target for your opponent's burn and stuff.
Right. Well, he's a 3/4 though, so I mean, it's at least a 2-for-1. You know. So let's see. Let's go back. Unless they've already cast their whatever. So Stoneskin, we're probably not gonna have a lot of targets for it. So we're dumping Defender, and we're definitely dumping. What else are we dumping out of here? So what are we dumping out of here? The totems, we talked about that. What else?
Spirit Walkers. Spirit Walker's not gonna be good.
Yeah. Tags, choose a target troop you control. Yeah, that's not going to be good at all. We have no troops to target. We're low on troops, so yeah, no targets. Stoneskin, we'll take that down to 1 for now because it does. Stoneskin does stop. What is it called? Life drain, life siphon. It stops life siphon, so it does counter that. Are we keeping Sure Shot or are we dumping him?
I like Sure Shot in a
control
like him?
Show. Yeah, he doesn't see a lot of play, that's for sure. Shot. Especially with the Soul Marble. It gives us 2 bodies to buff. It's pretty nice. Let's see, we're at 24 shards. So our curve is looking a little bit better. And we have the ramp now to get us into a better chance of us getting into King Gabe or into that Resurrection we want to get into. Is Resurrection a 1 of or a 2 of? I mean, we don't have card draw in here. Might be a 2 of.
I would play 1 if I was playing this deck.
Okay. We have 3 card slots, so we've already got the 24 shards, so we definitely need to put some more cards in here.
Well, if you play like 2 living totems, you're going to draw. Theoretically, you would draw them when you have mana to pump into them.
Right.
So it may not be the worst. Or you could play like 2 Stoneskins. You know, maybe 3 Hex Engines.
I think we could go down maybe a King Gabe, or do you want 2? You think 2?
Yeah, 2.
2.
You want to draw them.
I think 3 Hex Engines is pretty solid, though.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Our turn 1 is pretty bad. Do we need to go up to 25 shards with this? We might.
I would do 25 or 26.
Yeah, so let's go up to that 25th shard here. We're playing the control deck. Really need it. We really do.
I would play, if I'm playing a strict control deck, I would do 26. Like you want to reliably hit for 4 resources for sure shot.
Well, especially for Hex Engine. So 26 resources. So that actually puts us right at 60, and the curve looks a lot better already. I mean, that was actually pretty quick putting this together. I mean, it's going to take some playing around with. You're going to have to see if you want to have more in those 1. It'd be nice to have a turn 1 play in here. But there's really no good turn 1 play. I mean, this is...
Nah, like, well, you got Bottle Vitae. Like, if you want to try that out.
Yeah, I don't think I do, though, because it doesn't do anything for us, really. Like, Vitae I like when I'm trying to either combo or when I have cards I'm trying to get to, or if I need to do some shard fixing. But I don't really see it in
Sapper's Charges.
Sapper's Charge is better.
Potentially. But those are the only potential 1-drops I would put.
We've already got
the
Repel,
other,
which is strictly better than Sapper's Charge. You've got the 1 Chaos Key, Inner Conflict. We've got 4 Blinding Light. Do we want to play a playset of Blinding Light like that?
Maybe do 3 Blinding Light and 2 Eternal Use.
Well, I don't think I really do not want to play 2 Eternal Youth in here, but I mean, the big thing is it just doesn't affect the board, and like it's just in there if I actually flip an Aspirant, because that's the combo.
Does Blinding Light doesn't particularly affect the board either. Like if you want board impact,
right?
Blinding Youth doesn't do that. You could do a 1 of Immortality potentially.
Prevent all damage would be. Oh, this is prevent all damage. Oh, I'm thinking of Immortality. Yeah, you're right. How much is Immortality? Like how many?
It costs 2, and it just resets your life total to 10. It'll give you another turn, essentially.
You could try Howling Ambush in here. That might be pretty sweet, because we've got a lot of big troops.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that's pretty sweet. So this is pretty sweet removal, really. The only problem is they have to come into play that turn, so you have to do it like you have to have the resource up. I mean that could be pretty sweet in here.
If you want, some sweet 1-ofs, just a 1 of Revert would be kind of cool.
Yeah, my biggest problem with Revert is really good. I just wish it cantripped. I really think it needs to cantrip.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll put the 1 of Revert in here because that could help us out with a lot of problematic situations.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Revert?
Right there.
I should just. Oop, did I?
Reversion. You scroll past it.
I did scroll past it. I'll just type it in at the top.
Yeah.
You're like 30 seconds behind me, so.
Yeah.
Reversion. There it is.
Secret Lab. Secret Lab. I think this deck wants Secret Lab. Because like
at least as a 1 of, because if
you have no card draw.
Yeah, for sure. That way we can throw away those extra shards. I really like Howling Ambush. I think we can play a set of those in here.
I wouldn't play.
And then
I wouldn't play 4 Howling Ambush. I would not play 4 Howling Ambush.
We could pull it down to maybe like 2.
2 is better, because Repel is essentially doing the same thing without a condition.
Well, sure.
If you're just trying to kill something, then Repel is where you're gonna want to be.
Yeah, I think we can. Blinding Light. We can definitely. We're gonna trade Blinding Light for what's the other one? The one we were just talking about. Where if you're about to die, it just saves you.
Mm-hmm.
What's that one called?
Immortality.
Immortality. Yeah, we're gonna put one of those in there. So, it'd be nice if we could take our 4-point range down a little bit, I think. Maybe a Shellsafe.
No, I think you're fine with 26. You're fine.
26 for this. Oh, yeah, that's right. We have 26. Yeah, I mean, do you like it? Do you think there's any changes you would make? Or
Well, now again, I think we're kind of branching off into two things. It's like you can have a really consistent, just all-out control shell, or if you want to, be a little out of the box and try this Ascetic Aspirant guy, then you can put more one-ofs in the deck that you may think be good. You know what I mean?
right. Well, I mean, yeah. So you're saying you would advocate to remove Ascetic Aspirant?
No, it's just however you want to do it. Like, I think they're both cool ideas.
Right.
But like if say like this deck to me is now leaning towards the Aspirant plan, because like you have one Kasky, you have one Eternal Youth, you have one Secret Lab. In chat here, one Dwarven Turbine. That would be pretty sweet with Secret Lab, your Hex Engines, your Droo's Walkers.
Walker.
So, you're one of Reversion. So you kind of have this little package built into your deck that can deal with any situation.
We're gonna have to.
And it'd be cool to play this Aspirant because nobody plays it, but it's a cool card. So why not try to brew up something cool?
If anything, I mean, at least it refills your hand as long as you can survive. As long as it survives a turn or two.
Yeah.
I mean, it does draw you 2 cards in the same turn. And you don't have to flip it. I mean, it could get offensive for you if you felt like you couldn't flip it, or defensive.
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and pulled one of my Howling Ambush because we were 61 for some reason. But yeah, I think this will be interesting. It's going to take some work, that's for sure. You're going to have to figure out if you like playing this way, but the curve is a lot better. Putting the Hex Engines in here is going to make it a lot easier for you to play King Gabe, and it's going to make it a lot easier for you to play your late game, what is it called? Resurrection, for that plan to happen. And then Resurrection is really nice with Shellsafe, giving you those extra bodies. You've got your Soul Marbles. This is going to be a pretty interesting deck to play, I'd say, and it's going to be a lot more consistent. So, I mean, I'm pretty happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just go over some of the stuff we talked about tonight. It's a pretty short episode, really. So we talked to Jcrawl, one of our Hex CCG Pro contributors. You guys may think he's a new guy on the block, but he's been with us for quite a while. He's just started to pick up and do a lot of the podcasts with John, so we really enjoy hearing his different takes on things. We talked about Cory Jones' blog with the Shin'Hare decks and how it is that there's a lot of thought behind the world building and the PvE aspect, and so that's going to be something, if you're into that you should be looking forward to. Everyone loves the Shin'Hare. Those videos seem to do really well for me in particular, so I know that people are really excited about the Shin'Hare. We talked about a Reddit thread where we went into some Extinction and some discussion about that, so make sure to make a comment about what you think about Extinction or board wipes in general. Tell me if you like Extinction, if you think it's overpowered or whatever. Give me some reasons why, or just flame about it and just be like, I hate Extinction or something, I guess. Whatever. Give me some comments on my YouTube.
I want my alpha money back. Extinction's stupid.
Yeah.
How do I get a refund?
Yeah, even that comment. I unless something's derogatory or racial, I'm not going to delete it typically. So negative comments are welcome as well. and then we talked about some of the other questions that people had, and that led us into our deck doctor. So I hope that my buddy that made this comment, Mr. Ian Cannon, enjoys what we did with his deck. We'll be posting this deck on the YouTube and everywhere I post it. I'll also be posting Jcrawl's personal information. Jcrawl, go ahead and talk about your Twitch real quick.
My Twitch is just Jcrawl85, so twitch.tv/Jcrawl85. Again, since I got this new computer, I'll be able to stream a little bit more. Probably mostly on the weekends if I'm playing, like weekends at night. So
yeah, so make sure to hit him up and check out all of his content that he's making. And other than that, this is Aaron Squire saying God bless you and your families, and try not to rage too much out there.